The Morning Sports Desk, available on demand on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts, and WadenaRadio.com.
It is the Morning Sports Desk on a Tuesday, the 30th of July, a trade deadline Morning Sports Desk. I'm CJ. There is Corey.
And trade deadline Tuesday.
Trade deadline Tuesday. Of course, we're recording this in the morning, as it's in the title. Trade deadline is at 5 o'clock tonight. So it's more just kind of a preemptive primer, Corey. One last little bit of news before trade drops. And like any podcast, the moment we stop recording is the moment a move will be made.
So who is it? Who is going to no longer be a Minnesota Twin as of 5:01 this evening?
Well, I think anybody interested in a bunch of Twins trade news at 5 o'clock. You remember the show Nathan For You, Corey, on Comedy Central?
Yeah.
It's the one where he's on the boat and he goes, "I hope you're hungry," whoosh, for nothing.
Yeah. I see.
That's gonna be where they're at tonight on the gut level. Now, yeah. I've been wrong before, and I've been wrong multiple times, and ask my wife, I'll be wrong again. But hey, if we're going based on just vibes and gut level feeling, it just doesn't feel like a trade is going to work. But we'll talk about that more in a second. Let's just kind of get some recap. We talked a lot about some things leading up to the trade deadline and our thoughts on, ownership stuff and why they're not doing that. So to avoid doing that again and that rant, just go listen to yesterday's show. You'll get all the stuff, and then we'll be right on pace because there's nothing new to say. But Corey, there was a big move, or I shouldn't say big move, but there was a move yesterday with Kikuchi from the Toronto Blue Jays. He got traded to the Houston Astros for their 9th overall prospect and 2 others for a 5-starter with a 4 ERA, which was cool, help them. A little bit of an overpay, kind of what you do at the trade deadline, but that's a steep price that I think if the Twins made that deal, we'd all go, I wouldn't do that.
So where is Houston in all of this? Are they winning their division?
They're tied for the division.
They are on the top.
They're tied for the AL West. Them and the Mariners are only like 4 or 5 games above 500.
Well, and hasn't what Seattle has done probably forced the hand of Houston a little bit to try to get better, because Seattle picked up what's his face from Tampa,
Randy Arozarena.
And then they just got somebody else yesterday.
Turner.
Yeah, there we go. So they're doing their pieces that they think they need to do right after making the playoffs a year ago for the first time in 2 decades, I think.
Yep.
They're doing what they got to do to remain relevant. And that probably is what forces the overpay on Houston's part to get a guy who, if they make the playoffs, will be a bullpen pitcher for them.
Right, because remember, he was a bullpen pitcher for the Toronto Blue Jays last year because he was the guy that came in after Jose Barrios, and Carlos Correa got the go-ahead single with the bases loaded in Game 2 of the Wild Card Series. Still a nice pitcher, but yeah, you're right. Like, he's a back end of the rotation. The thing about Houston, and you're right, it is a bit of an arms race. Like, we got to stock up. We got to make sure we keep up with everybody else. But I think it also is the fact of the Astros, the reason why they started off as poor as they did is not because of their lineup. Their lineup is good. Kyle Tucker, Jose Altuve, Alex Bregman, Yordan Alvarez. Like, they got some good hitters in that lineup. It's been their pitching and their starting pitching. Justin Verlander has not been healthy for a majority of this season. Some other guys that they've really were counting on just have been hurt and or underperforming. And I think it's a combination of that plus seeing Seattle load up on bats leads them into that arms race. And again, I think if you're the Twins and you make that move, I think we all collectively maybe we'll go, I would have held off on pulling the trigger on that move, or maybe would have waited, because you still have, I don't think that there was an offer for Kikuchi that the Blue Jays were going to do. I think the reason the Blue Jays made the trade like a whole 24 hours before the trade deadline was because they're like, whoa, we're not going to get a better offer than this. Because otherwise, most teams really wait until that midnight hour because they're trying to squeeze every last bit of leverage that you can, which is why, and the Twins love to play the leverage game. It's typically why they don't do a bunch of trades until like right before the trade deadline, because they're just trying to see what they can get. There's a couple other moves off the board. Lane.
Hold on, if I can, just one more thing that's important, I think, in this is that recent history has shown that Houston's pretty good baseball team. And there is something to be said where even though the recent history is good, the most immediate history of them, like they haven't been able to reach the pinnacle now in a bit. So you feel that sense of urgency a little more when you are a team in that position. You compare them to the Twins, and just by, not an apples to apples comparison, but the Twins have not reached the pinnacle for a very, very, very long time. And when that's the case, you afford yourself, I think, the ability to not fall to that sense of urgency. Sometimes it's real and you need it, and you need that sense of urgency to get you over the hump. And sometimes it can get you into trouble, and you trade away your 9 prospect or whatever you said it was, and that guy goes on to be an all-star for the next 15 years. So it's that sense of urgency of like, do we have to win now actually, or are we good enough to win now with what we got? That's the art form of professional sports. It's not a science at all.
Right. And with the trade deadline, team dynamics definitely play into it. The Astros, remember, this is not the GM that won them. This is not the front office that won them the World Series in 2022. This is not even the same front office. That wasn't even the same front office. This is 2 front offices removed from the group that brought in Carlos Correa and developed Jose Altuve and that basically built the modern day Astros. This is their owner with Jeff Bagwell and I believe one other former, I want to say Biggio maybe. There's one other former player that's kind of in, and they're going away from, the Astros when they built their dynasty were very hardcore, analytic minded, doing all this stuff, and they're switching a little bit more. It's neither here nor there, but it's just fascinating that their philosophy is going a little more traditional. Like they paid big money for Josh Hader, a reliever. That's not something you would typically do. They're going out, like you said, kind of doing some of these moves because they know that their hitting core is good enough to win a World Series. And like you said, they were in the ALCS last year. So, why not make that push? Also, another team, the Texas Rangers, they're the defending World Series champions. And they're probably a team that should sell. Max Scherzer will get them some nice prospects. They have a couple other guys, and they've sold some of the minor pieces. But you're coming off a World Series win, and you're in the hunt for the playoffs come the trade deadline. Are you going to sell? Are you going to do that? And that's why I think Scherzer stays with the Rangers. But they did trade. There was a trade. Michael Lorenzen got traded from the Texas Rangers to the Kansas City Royals. So he's going to help out Kansas City's starting rotation. The Royals say, hey, we're in the playoff hunt. Let's go make a move. Let's be competitive. They got a starting pitcher. Again, he's got an ERA of about 3.5. His underlying metrics suggest that he's due for regression pretty quick. But again, he's been producing for them this year. They go out and get a move. The Cleveland Guardians, Corey, they made a trade. They gave up prospects. They took on, not a ton of salary in a former top prospect who's kind of washed out in the big leagues. Lane Thomas is a corner outfield platoon utility kind of guy who, again, going to help out Cleveland in whatever it is they need to do. A little bit of an overpay for the Guardians, but
doesn't he?
What?
Sounds like a 3rd string tight end, doesn't it?
Oh, 100%. Sounds like
Thomas. Lane Thomas for 2. 2-yard reception, Lane Thomas. That's a first down to keep the sticks going.
What a good 10-yard run. We can't forget the block by Lane Thomas that set the way because he's 270 pounds and 6'3". He is a blocking tight end. Lane Thomas is like not Jim Kleinsasser because Jim Kleinsasser is the perfect tight end and fullback name, but Anyway,
I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, that's good because that's basically the end of my thing of, hey, Corey, the Royals are making a trade to try and help their teams out. The Guardians are making a trade to try and help their teams out. Only 2 teams have not made a trade in the last week. It's been the Oakland Athletics and the Minnesota Twins.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the A's are going to make some trades, but
Yeah, because they're going to offload people.
They're going to offload some people.
Trying to get better.
Right.
They're actually for notably trying to get worse. But, with their $8.50 hot dog, they're not, they don't need to offload that much salary.
Yeah, that's true. If they just sell a few more hot dogs, they should be able to pay for like somebody. Or at least maybe offset paying for soda in the clubhouse.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
I don't want my guys paying for soda. Make it happen.
But the Twins haven't made a move. And I know we understand that there's a difference between doing what like the Detroit Tigers. I know we talked about this yesterday. You don't necessarily need to do what the Detroit Tigers did in the 2000s and just overpay and be like, you know what, we're opening up the pocketbook. It only really works if you are the most recent example of this is the Dodgers, who they don't care about anything except trying to win immediately and spending more money than the Lord himself. And like that, it works for them. That is a way to do it. But for the Twins, I don't know, man. It's just not, there's this middle ground too, right? That exists between what the Dodgers are doing and then not doing anything to try to win.
Right. And yeah, I mean, the Dodgers, heck, they've committed $1 billion last offseason to team payroll, and they're still trying to make moves at the deadline. And it's a good segue. Zeke mentioned this to us yesterday, and I trust Zeke, but I didn't believe him when he said Duran in a trade mix. What the heck? And I decided to do some investigative journalism, and here's what I found. The Twins, according to MLB trade rumors, are known to be working with little to no financial flexibility as the trade deadline approaches. And then they talk about payroll, stuff like that. But it comes to The Athletic's Dan Hayes writes that the Twins have listened to offers from teams about controllable players like closer Jhoan Duran and more obvious trade candidates like pending free agents Max Kepler or Manuel Margot. Of course, listening to offers is a long way from actively shopping players or having any particular inclination to trade them, because Hayes says the cost for Kepler and Duran is said to be extremely high. The Dodgers have inquired about Jhoan Duran, because I read the Dan Hayes article, and go read it. It's got all, I don't want to spill too much, but the gist I got was that the Dodgers called and the Dodgers were like, hey, any chance you want Duran? So the Dodgers committed $1 billion in payroll last offseason. And now they're like, we need more. How can we add? How can we keep getting over the top? And the Twins are like, it's always worth a listen. And they said, here's some prospects we can give you. And the Twins said, no, we want to win now. What can you give us at the major league level? And the Dodgers are trying to compete. And they're like, well, we don't have anything at the major league level to give you because we're trying to compete. So, Max Kepler's been thrown around. Manuel Margot, we talked about him yesterday as potential trade guy. Corey, what's kind of your initial thoughts on just that? I mean, it's little clickbaity, but just on Duran being thrown around in some of these rumors.
Well, if you're the Dodgers or anybody who needs a back end closer, Duran is one of the guys. So if you have a bottomless pit for a wallet and more money than anybody knows what to do with, you have to call. Like it is the Dodgers front office organization to call and be like, we want him. This is what we'll give you. And then it's up to the Twins to be like, no, we're trying to win too. Give us players that can help us win right now. You guys have enough players to help you win. We're not going to help push you over the edge unless you can help push us over the edge in some way, shape, or form with whatever redundancy you have in your roster. And if they're not going to do that, the Twins are chock full of prospects. They've got plenty of guys who can play at the major league level at a number of different positions. They already are having to sort out a world of problems, issues. There's just a lot of questions about who's going to play where for the next 3 years. What do you need to add more to that mix for? Unless that prospect that they're offering is, whatever version of what Jackson Holiday was. You know what I mean? Like the number 1 overall pick, a bona fide, going to be a starter or and a player in the league for the next decade plus. That's just not gonna. That it's just not. Do I believe it's real? Yes. Do I believe that the Dodgers offered something that the Twins didn't think was good enough? Yes. Do I think the Twins had no problem saying no to that? Yes. I think conversations like that, I think the Dodgers probably called about X, Y, and Z closer on half a dozen other teams anyway. So it's just happened to be one of them.
Yeah, exactly. And, you know, you have to listen to everybody. We talked about Kepler's name being thrown around. And again, the Twins have, like you said, the Twins have thrown around Kepler's name in trade rumors for like the last 6 years.
Right.
They haven't traded him. So what makes you think that they're going to trade him now when they're in the middle of a pennant chase? If the Twins were, let's say the Twins were the Tigers right now, they're like 5 games below 500, and there's 3 teams ahead of them in their own division. Well, yeah, trade Max Kepler. Like, get him out of here. He's not coming back next year. Get him out. Get what you can. But you're trying to compete, so you're not going to trade your starting right fielder. I know Matt Wallner could slide into right field, but again, why would you take away? Kepler's on like an 8-game hitting streak right now. Why would you? That guy's hitting well for you. Why are you taking him off the board? And that return you get better be substantial. So I don't think the Twins are trading Max Kepler.
So the reason would be is exactly what you just said. Like, if he is however you want to look at him, and he's been very good this year, right? I don't know how he's been of late compared to, but like, he was one of the reason the Twins kept winning games for a 6-week stretch. But he is one of the redundant pieces of 4 guys who could play a corner outfield spot for the Twins, right?
Right.
And he is a bona fide Major League Baseball player, which is what another team would want in return for a guy that they would give up who's a bona fide baseball player to help another team. Like, there does have to be some give and take. You are not going to I think we get caught up in winning and losing trades a lot.
100%.
And it's not about winning or losing the trade. It's about getting better. So if you can get rid of Max Kepler and Wallner is going to perform roughly the same, but you are going to improve your bullpen or you are going to improve your starting lineup enough to get you over the hump and win the division, Kepler fits into that redundant role. Now, I don't think they will, because like we already mentioned, and like we've already talked about a dozen times this season, Max Kepler has been a name up for trade since 2006. He's the CJ McCollum of Major League Baseball, or for the Minnesota Twins. He's up in every trade rumor all the time, and they've never gotten rid of him. And they've probably been right to not get rid of him. But who would you rather get rid of, Max Kepler or Matt Wallner?
Right.
I think we all think Kepler's probably the answer here, right?
Well, for a couple of reasons. One, he's on an expiring contract, and 2, he's making 10 million, 10, 12 million this year. And they're just not going to commit to paying an outfielder 10 million next year. Yeah. When you have a cheaper guy like Matt Wallner. Yeah. Everything you said is correct. I'm on board with you. I'm not opposed to trading Max Kepler, but that's me.
Everything you said. That's why this is difficult, because he's one of the reasons you're in this spot this year.
Right. And the Twins, the reason they haven't traded him is because they think very highly of Max Kepler.
Yep.
So we think we grade Max Kepler a certain way, and they probably grade Max Kepler higher. Whatever we think of his abilities, they think he has a higher ceiling. So somebody could look at this 8-game hitting streak and go, good, he's playing well. He's playing like he's trading while he's hot. But if you're the Twins, you're like, boom, this is the Max Kepler we know can be there. So why would we get rid of him? He's starting to play like the player we think he can be for us. Mm-hmm. And that's why they're probably not going to trade him. Anyway, let's go over quick one last time, Corey, just some options that the Twins could go with. So I think I'm going to rule out starting pitching. Because the Twins have Varland, there's Festa, who's going to make a start today. I just think that, and Bailey Ober pitched 8 shutout innings on Sunday. You have Jhoan, you have Pablo Lopez. I think the Twins, if the playoffs ended today, I don't think there's going to be somebody who they can realistically trade for that is going to be better than Bailey Ober. And I know there's Blake Snell on the market. Blake Snell has a player option for next year that's $38.5 million. I don't think the Twins are even going to take a chance on him cashing that in. It's a Carlos Correa type contract. He's likely going to opt out and try again, but he's having a down year this year. So he might just opt back in and take the near $40 million. I don't think the Pohlads are ready to take that risk. So I don't think the Twins are trading for Blake Snell.
And Randy Dobnak is officially on the 40-man roster. Like Patrick Royce said, that should solve any problems fans have about Twins not acquiring pitching at the deadline.
Did they make that move official?
That was according to our dear friends at our sister station, sister media company at Hubbard Radio, Score North.
Yes. So that is, again, and we'll get to that in a second with Randy Dobnak, because he had a great way of putting it out into the world. But yeah, I mean, the point is they have some guys that they can throw in the back end of the rotation. I mean, yes. The Twins won the division with Dallas Keuchel pitching like 4 to 5 innings every single night and giving up like 4 or 5 runs. Mm-hmm. So I think their focus should be on improving the back end of the bullpen, getting high leverage guys, specifically a lefty, because Caleb Thielbar has shown that he is not really in trustworthy roles. You can't really trust him in the high leverage spots like you could the last couple years. Steven Okert has been Okert. He's been Okert. He hasn't been great. He's been mediocre. Should I stop?
Nope. Times.
They need, and Cody Funderburk is on the IL. So let's just narrow this down so we can get to a few names realistically. I have pulled up, Corey, Spotrac, which tracks player contracts and stuff like that. It's a great resource. Spotrac, I had the filter set to relief pitchers. And if we go, these are players that are going to be free agents next season. Mm-hmm. Or have the possibility of being free agents next season. Mm-hmm. So some of these guys have already been traded. Like Kenley Jansen got traded back to the Red Sox. That's where he is right now.
Congratulations to him.
If you go down, there's Ryan Presley, Craig Kimbrell. Those guys aren't moving. And again, the second, this is hits, this is throws. So the second letter is what we're looking for here. You didn't have Aroldis Chapman, $10.5 million this year. I don't know how much of that contract is left. He's a two-time World Series winning closer.
Yep.
Pittsburgh is probably going to sell.
Yep.
He walks a lot more than he ever has, but he still throws as hard as he ever has.
Uninterested. I'm uninterested in him as a person. Let's go ahead and just not bring that circus to town.
I'm with you. Looking at Matt Moore with the LA Angels, he's making $9 million again at the beginning of the year. Don't know how much of that contract specifically is left, but it's at a reduced rate. He's a left-handed guy. I haven't looked at his numbers this season, but he's been around a time or two, spent some time in Tampa. Baldelli, of course, coming from Tampa. The Twins try and do a lot of Tampa stuff. That could be a potential name. In, out, other, indifferent.
I just feel bad for Mike Trout anytime anybody's talked about the Angels getting rid of.
Yeah, not good for him. At least he's been getting hurt now, so he can just chill at home with his wife and kids.
Yeah. What about that name right below Matt Moore? That one is interesting.
Yeah, that guy. I don't know. Do you think the Twins would like a guy like that?
Yeah, I mean he fits the mold of who they usually get.
Yeah, you're right. I think that could work. For those of you who are on the audio only version, it's old friend Emilio Pagan.
Boo!
The reason why you wouldn't trade for him, though, he's making $8 million this year, and he's making $8 million next year on a player option. He's opting right back into that, and the Twins are not going to pay $8 million.
The old joke is probably going to pick that one up.
He's probably gonna pick that one up. It's not going anywhere. Cincinnati, I don't know what they were doing. I don't know why Cincinnati, a fly ball pitcher like Emilio Pagan, and they play in a bandbox of a stadium. Why are you offering? I don't get. And believe it or not, they're not in playoff contention this year. Okay. Down the line here. And again, these names get not progressively worse, but the contracts get smaller. So kind of infer with that what you will. This is an interesting one for Miami. Tanner Scott. He's a left-handed reliever. He's 30 years old, 6-year vet. He's in the prime of his career. He has an ERA of around 2. He's been the closer for Miami this year. Now, you wouldn't need him to particularly be the closer, but you could have him as your primary left-handed setup man, your primary left-handed flamethrower, your firefighter, whatever you want to term him. I think if I'm the Twins, if I can make one move, making 5.7 this year, he's going to be a free agent next year. There's a little bit of contract left. Maybe I'm missing some key details because I haven't seen his name thrown around a lot, Twins related, but I've seen his name thrown around a lot that the Marlins are going to look to trade him because they're like the Angels are just selling anything that isn't bolted down. Tanner Scott could be a name. I think if I'm the Twins and I go after one guy, it'd be to try and go after Tanner Scott out of Miami.
This sounds like a Twins name.
Yeah. That sounds like an early 2000s Twins reliever name.
Come on, Tanner. You can do it, Tanner. Come on, buddy.
John Gordon. And here's Tanner Scott coming into the mound. Like, yeah, that could work.
Would call him Tucker Scott, though. That's
He's Tucker now. I'm sorry. That's just how it has to be.
Yeah, no, sure. That sounds, yeah. So there's a few names that exist out there in the world that are, but again, are you giving up Max Kepler for a guy named Tanner Scott?
No, and that's the thing. Miami's going to want prospects, but you're going to have to unload a veteran. So how do you get, and Miami's a cheap organization either. So they're not going to be like, yeah, we'll take on salary. That's fine. Like,
right.
Pay a lot of his salary. So you're going to have to, do you offload Manuel Margot? Do you say, here, just take him? Like, we don't care what you do with him. Get him out of here. The thing about trading Kyle Farmer is, and we forgot to mention this yesterday, he's on the injured list. So you can't trade somebody who's on the injured list.
Right, exactly.
So he can't go anywhere. So basically, Manuel Margot is your guy. Carlos Santana is performing too well. You're not going to trade him. You're going to have to offload some. Now, maybe there's a different corresponding move where basically you trade Manuel Margot to a different team and you basically trade for a 17-year-old prospect in low A in developmental ball for Kepler and another prospect. And basically it's just a wink and nod salary dump. That could be a way to do it.
Sure.
But again, I don't know the financials specifically would need to work out. Anyway, those are just a few options.
All right. You heard it here first. Tanner Scott will be a Minnesota Twin.
There you go. And if it's wrong, direct all your hate mail to @Corey Tackman on Twitter. Okay. So looking at the announcement, Corey, the decision, the big grandiose, here it is. A statement on Twitter from Randy Dobnak @Dobnak_. It says from Gata Sports Management, New York, July 30th, 2024. The following statement was released today by Randy Dobnak, through his agent, Matthew Gata, CEO of Gata Sports Management, in parentheses, and quotes, GSM, from One World Trade Center in New York, in response to questions about his return to the MLB, I'm back. What do you think?
Right. We got the Terminator back in business. No, it's really he turned into a punchline, I think, for a while, right? He was, remember how I think it's easy to forget how good he was for the Twins in whatever year that he was really, really good. But then he got injured and then he kept getting injured and he could never get it back and he was never right and he was never good. And for that guy to really like live in purgatory there, for a guy who signed a big extension and it's cool. It's exciting to have. I mean, it's the 40-man roster. Like, do we see him come September? Yeah, maybe. But like, the important thing is like, he kind of survived all that, which is crazy.
Right. I mean, there were so many times where, and look, the reason why Randy Dobnak is still on the Twins roster right now is because the Twins signed him, and I'm going to look up the official numbers here, but to like an 8-year contract before the 2021 season. And because they did that, they have guaranteed him money. So even though he's been hurt and, outside of this year, he'd been struggling in AAA, they had no choice but to keep him on the roster. If he was a Joe Blow prospect or washed up prospect or whatever, they would have sent him packing a long time ago.
If he was Randy Dobnak and they didn't sign him to an unbelievable extension, he could have been Jhoan Santana. If he didn't have an extension, he would no longer be a Twin.
Right. Now, if you look at the contract for Randy Dobnak, it was a 5-year, $9.25 million contract, and it kept him through 2021, 2022, 23, 24, and 25. So he's being paid $2.25 million this year. And again, for a club that is squeezing nickels, that definitely does not help.
Yeah, your AAA team's 3-starter, that's not ideal.
No, not ideal. He'll be making $3 million next year. And then in 2026, 2027, and 2028, they are all club options, which the Twins will not pick up, I think, because he's going to make $6 million in 26, $7 million in 27, and $8.5 million in 28. Corey, any odds that you think those get picked up?
He's going to look really good for the Las Vegas Athletics, don't you think?
I think so. Him and Brent Rooker going to be tearing up out there.
Reunite the old pals together for
former Twins on the 2020 roster.
Yeah, it's exciting for both of them. I think it's really cool that he was able to kind of work his way back into this in some way, shape, or form, whatever it is. Even if you never see him again, he's now a guy. If an arm gets hurt, he's that much closer to being in the mix. And by golly, his story was cool. He persevered through being an Uber driver, and I mean, he had a season of like your dreams coming true, and then whatever is the nightmare scenario after that. So it's cool that he's been able to persevere through all of this. I would love it for him to be good, because as like I said, Patrick Royce joked about, this is one way to help maybe solve an arm in the bullpen sort of issue. If nothing else, it's depth when you need it.
Right, exactly. If nothing else, it is depth, and he's been pitching well. He has an ERA under 3 in AAA, and it's a tough league in that independent league. It's a very offensive heavy league based on the ballparks that they all play in. I mean, if you look at St. Paul, it's a very hitter friendly ballpark. So there's a couple things that could suggest that he could come up and at least be passable at the big league level. It's fascinating in that statement because he said his return to, first of all, the MLB, but his return to Major League Baseball. And so that, does that imply that the Twins haven't announced anything official yet? So does it imply that he's just added to the 40-man roster and that's that? Or does it imply that he's getting added to the 40-man roster and then getting called up to the Twins today? That'll be the Twins have not announced anything official yet.
It's interesting. That's a good point.
So we'll see. At the very least, like you said, it's a cool story. He had some finger in.
If you are on the 40-man roster, though, you are a major league player.
Technically, yes, but you're still in AAA. So, like, you're not on the big league club.
Right.
Like Brooks Lee was on the 40-man roster all season long for the Twins, but he wasn't a big leaguer until early in this month.
Sure, but he has been a big leaguer already. I mean, I know we're talking about semantics here, but he has already been a big leaguer. So to make it back in the 40-man roster means, until he touches the rubber again on a major league field. But like, this is as close as he's been in a long time.
Right. Exactly. So,
cool.
It's just a cool story. He hurt his finger in 22 and 23, and it really enabled his pitching, because everybody would kind of, in the back of their minds, whenever the Twins would need pitching help, would go, where the heck is that Randy Dobnak guy? Isn't it the guy with the Fu Manchu? Where is he? Where's the Uber driver?
The stash. Bring back the stash. Remember Joe Mauer sideburns night? We need a Randy Dobnak mustache night. Let's get that going.
I think if he would have stayed on the roster and not even been great, but just kind of been there, it's like a 5-starter, I 100% think that would have been a thing, at the very least, as of last year. Like,
could you imagine like a Randy Dobnak bobblehead, but the head doesn't bobble? They make the mustache like blah, 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 blah.
Like a door stopper. Yeah. I can't wait to see it. I cannot wait to see it.
Randy, go.
One last thing, Corey, and then we'll mention Ant on Team USA. Comcast and Bally have announced an agreement. So people who have Comcast, Xfinity, and Midco Sports can get Bally Sports North back on their TVs, but there's a catch.
Yeah.
All right. The catch is that you have until the end of August to sign up for a 3-month free trial for Comcast's premium package. because the reason that Comcast pulled Bally was because they wanted Bally to be on their premium cable package, not their basic cable package.
Sure.
Because whatever, Bally sucks and whatever and all that stuff and cord cutting, yada, yada. So Bally was like, no, we're not doing that. You got to keep us on our basic cable package. Otherwise, the number of people who subscribe is going to go down.
Mm-hmm.
And that's going to hurt their commercial sales and whatnot, or advertising revenue. And they eventually came to an agreement. Comcast won, and shocker, the Megacorp wins. And Bally is going to go on their premium cable package starting, at the beginning of September. But they're basically giving people a chance to opt in for a 3-month free trial, which basically would get them through the rest of the season. And then next season, they'd have to get the premium cable package if they want to watch Bally. But let's be honest, Bally's probably not going to be around in 12 months anyways. There's nothing really to be said about it, Corey. Just another reminder that Bally sucks.
Burn it to the ground.
Burn it to the ground. All right. On the lighter note, Anthony Edwards has been hanging out at the Olympics, Corey. Look at him at the ping pong championship yesterday. Him and the crowd.
Saw it. He got super into it. He had an encounter with some of the ping pong players, and he had people chirping him like they're gonna get the 21-0, baby. And he's like, I don't know, man. Nobody has ever believed in himself more than Anthony Edwards believes in himself. And can you blame the guy? He's been right almost every single time.
Right. I mean, if he thinks he can be an Olympian ping pong player, I'm inclined to at least let him go out there and try it.
I think he could be an Olympian ping pong player. He isn't an Olympian ping pong player. You understand what I'm saying? Like the difference here?
Yeah, if he really wanted to be, he could do it, but he's not in his. If you ask him to go do it today, he can't.
No, being the best ping pong player amongst your NBA teammates, or maybe in the entire NBA, is considerably different.
Right.
Being one of the best ping pong players in the entire world. He's the best, man.
I mean, just look at it.
I know.
Look at him having fun out there.
It's so cool. By the way, that corny, cheesy look on his face is that is the look of Anthony Edwards, isn't it?
Uh-huh.
If it's not that, it's him giving the, Degeneration X suck it symbol, but it's one of those two things. He's just a cheese ball.
Yeah. I mean, he's just a goofball. It's what makes him endearing. There was something I saw on Twitter where it was Ant doing something like that or being goofy. And somebody said the reason why Anthony Edwards is considered face of the league isn't just because he's good, And maybe there are a couple of young, like Shea is right now is better than him. And there's a couple other young players who you could say are better than him or more talented, whatever. The reason is he's one of the more talented young players in the NBA. And the dude is funny. He's funny.
Completely and utterly engaging.
Yes, that's what makes him the face of the league, because it's not just about being great. If that was true, Mike Trout would be the face of sports because he's awesome. Mike Trout's, I mean this in an endearing way, he's boring. He's he works hard. His teammates love him. I'm sure he's great in the clubhouse and he's engaging and doing all this stuff. In terms of just being a national symbol for your game, he's boring. Anthony Edwards is the last thing from boring.
Well, and he's also a fresh take on boisterous, because NBA boisterous oftentimes means Draymond Green.
Right.
It means being Rasheed Wallace. It means being Charles Barkley. Now, Charles is currently endearing, but he was problematic in his career with things he would say. And I'm not saying Ant isn't going to do something ridiculous. As a matter of fact, he's got a major a major thing every single year where he's using slurs or he's knocking people up that aren't his current girlfriend. There's something every year but he's so charming that it kind of Draymond isn't really charming. Charles isn't really charming, right? Rasheed Wallace, that's not even KG, who was really boisterous and a good soundbite. Not much charming about Kevin Garnett. He's here to F you up kind of a deal.
Right.
This is just like like he's everyone's favorite uncle, but he's 23 years old.
He's like he's everybody's favorite nephew. You know what I mean? Is like when you see that nephew, you can't wait to razz him. You know what I mean? You can't wait to go talk smack to him. He's that one, like everybody's got that little cousin or nephew when you see them, they're like 4 years old and you're going to say something to them and they're going to go, no, like that's Anthony Edwards. You are going to go and you're going to go back and forth with that guy in a very fun and endearing way when you see him at the family barbecue or something like that, or at family Christmas. So it's really cool to see Ant do that. And by the way, Corey, more importantly, Ant's been playing meaningful minutes for Team USA, had a big block in their win against Serbia. It's been really fun to see Anthony Edwards on this team. And we've talked about before kind of the importance of him being there and what it means for Ant long-term. And we can have that conversation later, but just how fun is it to see Anthony Edwards on this team with playing with guys like LeBron, and seems like he's got a pretty good chemistry with Kevin Durant.
To nobody's surprise, he fit right in immediately in a personality way, but also in the way he plays. He fit right in no time at all. And Minnesota Timberwolves fans knew that that's what would happen. It's fun to see everybody else recognize it. Like, over the last year, watching everybody else fall in love with Ant when we all knew kind of what he was and just hoped that his game would improve. It's been fun to see, like, nationally, some of that silliness and the word you used, endearing, come out of him, because he is, he came into the Timberwolves, right? It was not his team. It's Karl Anthony Towns' team. And Anthony says that all the time. Like, this is Cat's team. I'm just here to fit in and play and do what I'm supposed to do. It is of no surprise at all that he just slotted himself right into a very impactful, meaningful spot, while also accepting that KD is the greatest American Olympian basketball player in history, and LeBron is the greatest basketball player of all time, depending on who you talk to. Like, he understands his role and his belonging in these certain situations better than most do at ever, let alone at this age.
Right, exactly. He just, we've talked about this off air of like, Team USA needs somebody late in games to just be that guy to lock down and play defense, and then on the offensive end of the floor not want to be a ball hog. That's Anthony Edwards. Even in games where you need him to do that, he wouldn't do that because he wants to lock down on defense and facilitate. He doesn't quite know how to facilitate, but the point is he's not going to just be that black hole on offense. Mm-hmm. And it's just fun to see the fact that he's thinks very highly of himself. But at the end of the day, when LeBron and KD tell him, hey, Ant, we need you to do X, he's not going to go, no, man, I don't do that. He's going to do it. And that's the fun part about Anthony Edwards, is there's cockiness there. But there also is a guy who's like, I don't think it's not lost on him that he's playing with LeBron James and Kevin Durant and Steph Curry. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
It's going to be big for his career, and we'll talk about that later. But just seeing him get to be with that team, I would watch the Olympic team anyways, because they're the front runners to win gold. And it's cool to see all these guys play together. But the fact that Anthony Edwards is on that team, Rudy Gobert plays for France. That's cool. Karl Anthony Towns has played for the Dominican Republic before, and some other, I think he played for the Dominican Republic. Mm-hmm. He did in the FIBA tournament last year. But to have a guy for the Timberwolves be on Team USA and be just kind of a fun part of this mix is just really cool.
Yeah, and not just on it, but impacting it. Just like the regular season. It's not that the Timberwolves were good. It's that the Timberwolves were really good with this guy as like a key cog in the whole thing. It's like Kirby Puckett-esque a little, you know what I mean? It's that joyfulness that everybody always talked about with Kirby. And that
they're having fun out there.
Yeah, which is, it's a little cheesy to say it that way because they're playing basketball. Like, which one of those guys doesn't have fun playing basketball in the grand scheme of it? But he wears it kind of on his sleeve in a way that that you don't get to see a lot anyway in professional athletics, let alone for the team that you like the most.
Right. It's fun. It's really, really fun. One last thing, Corey, and then we are going to call it a day. I want to present to you weird ballpark food once again in Colorado. They are keeping it weird with the Rockies' new food item called Polar Pasta, which resembles spaghetti and meatballs, even though it will be vanilla ice cream, donut holes, strawberry syrup, and mint. Corey, are you in?
Yep.
It looks weird, but I'm in.
It's ice cream and brownies or donuts?
Donut holes.
Yeah, no. Yeah, I'm in.
Vanilla ice cream, what I assume is chocolate donut holes.
Served on a Frisbee? What is that?
The what?
What is that? Is that served on a Frisbee? What's going on?
Yeah, it looks like it's kind of served on a Frisbee, yeah.
Yeah, no, I'm in, man. It's ice cream. Why wouldn't I be in on that?
Right.
I'd be in on how much does this cost? Do we know? I'll be in on the $16 it takes to buy that way more than I would be on any money it costs to buy a hot dog at a ballpark.
Right. If you're going to get some kind of staple, you might as well get something like that. Like, again, I've talked before, like, I'll spend a lot of money at Target Field for the helmet nachos because you get a lot. They're they're good. And you get to take the helmet home with you. So that's cool. With that, it's ice cream. Imagine on a hot summer day in the mountains. I mean, Coors Field is on my bucket list of ballparks. So if I go there, I'm getting that. I'm getting that right there.
Think about how hot it's been the last 2 weeks. You're not getting, ice cream is a staple at our house anyway. I think the last half a dozen times I've been to a Twins game, I've gotten ice cream.
Right.
Ice cream. So why not let it be that ice cream? Because it also comes with donuts.
If you're going to get ice cream, don't get the little, ice cream in the plastic cup that's got the wood spoon.
Oh, those malts though. Don't you slander those malts.
I'm not slandering them. I'm just saying, if you're going to go all in.
Yes, of course.
Go all in.
If you get a Frisbee that you'll later get to throw on the field and disgust.
To be fair, Rockies fans don't actually watch Rockies games. They're just there for the vibes.
Hard to argue with it.
Hard to argue with that team. Ugh, talk about irrelevant. This has been the Morning Sports Desk for a Tuesday, the 30th of July.
The Morning Sports Desk, available on demand on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts, and WadenaRadio.com.